I suppose it is a bit of a cliche phrase, isn't it? If you remember the 60s, you weren't there, but I'm probably guessing correctly when I say that our guest can remember it, because that's when he started his rather successful career. From starting at the Marquee Club in Soho in 1964, working with people like Rod Stewart and Eric Clapton, to opening a recording studio in the early 70s, he's gone on to become one of the top agents in Europe. Dire Straits, Simple Minds, Huey Lewis, they were just some of his earlier signings. And with us, would you believe, ladies and gentlemen, is the man who found Bryan Adams. I'm not sure it was during the summer of '69 though, was it, Carl?
I'm not saying this, I'm coming up here. You're ruining my speech. You're fucking up my whole speech. He's done half my speech already.
You know, the funny thing is, the next thing I've got written here is I won't say anything more because he won't have anything left to say.
Yeah, get off.
I'll mention Michael Bublé and Billy Ocean and Chris Rea and the others that he looks after, but he will do far better than I. But it isn't just music that floats this man's boat. It's theatre, which is also a passion of his. He's written and produced his own musical, and his new play is set for the West End at the end of this year. You think your contacts book is full? Have a look at his. It's extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carl Leighton-Pope.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that lovely intro. It was too long and too detailed, but apart from that, I thought it was really, really good. Do you want to take this? Do you want to take this microphone, Blair?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how many of you in this room suffer from hay fever, but it's fucking killing me this year. You have no idea. Anyway, quite recently, I was accused by someone of being an entrepreneur. In the music business, we don't actually use that word at all. It just doesn't exist. If you last for over 50 years and you're quite successful, they call you a legend. My wife refers to it as legend, but it is actually legend. And I sort of thought if I was going to come and talk to you today about being an entrepreneur, I should kind of learn a little bit more about it. It turns out that entrepreneurs work hard, they've got vision, they've got passion, they've got motivation. They risk take, they're curious, they're creativity, confidence, and a shed load of luck. And I thought, well, anyway, I'll circle back on that later on in the speech. I'm born in 1946. I'm the son of a coal miner, and I'm born in Glamorgan in the Valley. By the time I was 5, 1951, there was an accident. My father was involved in that, and he took his family to London, where obviously he didn't want us to go and follow his footsteps. It's quite funny actually, because my dad is one of 13 children, and which means I've got a shed load of cousins. And every time I see Tom Jones, Tom's really, really lovely. Every time I see him and I talk to him about something, I got a cousin there. He's unbelievable. Anyway, we end up in London. I found the music business. Well, actually, I found music. I started to buy records. I started to get very excited about it. And when the year 1962 arrived, I was 16 years old. And we were living in Hampstead. London was just awash with colour and fun. It was the most extraordinary place. I took my mock GCEs, which I'm sure all of you have taken, and failed every single subject. In fact, my teacher told me in one of the science papers I spelt my name wrong. But I don't think that was actually true. I left school, got a job like everybody else did. I bought a scooter. I bought my shoes and my shirts in Carnaby Street. I became a mod. I fought on the beaches, and I followed a band called the High Numbers, who would eventually become the Who. You could not have made a better life if you'd written it on a piece of paper. It was sensational. London was just the most extraordinary place, and I lived it very large until 1964, when I met a guy who said that the Marquee Club had moved from Oxford Circus, or Oxford Street, to Wardour Street, and they were just open. They were looking for a guy to work there 5 nights. So I didn't even ask what the job was. I showed up, sold myself to the guy. He said, "You're the very person for us, and you will now be working at the Marquee Club 5 nights a week." And then he said, "It's raining." Now, I kind of knew that on account of the fact I was fucking soaking wet. And I said, "Yeah, get in the cloakroom." So I went in the cloakroom, and that was all right. And I heard this guitarist playing. And I thought, my God, this guy's amazing. So I came out to look at Long John Baldry, who was Canadian, some sensational guitar. And he'd met a kid in a railway station in Richmond who was going to come up and sing 4 songs with him. And that was my first meeting with Rod Stewart, who was also a mod like me and was just sensational. A couple of years older than me, and my whole marquee world just exploded. Fortunately, or coincidentally, my father had gone on to become a publican and had opened a pub in Dean Street, right next door to Wardour Street, which is where I was working at the Marquee Club. So, because my dad's Welsh and old-fashioned, he wouldn't let my mum do my washing or feed me for nothing. So I had to do a morning shift in the pub, which was all right. But the following week, Eric Clapton showed up and played with the Yardbirds. The week after, the Moody Blues played. The week after that, Stevie Winwood showed up with Keep On Running. And I was in heaven. You have no idea how good Soho was. And everybody came to the club. Mick Jagger was there all the time. Charlie Watts used to hang around outside, so I'd let him in for nothing. And McCartney would come if there was a good band on. It was like, and the thing is, right, which is sort of quite difficult, because I kind of throw all these names around the room, and you're going, oh my God, Paul McCartney. Nobody was famous. We were just all having a laugh. I mean, we were all going up the ship. I remember sitting in the ship one night, and the Who was sitting in the corner, and a guy came in and said, you're a band, aren't you? And Mooney turned around and said, yeah, we're called The Who. What a fucking stupid name that is. Boom. We all know how that worked out for him. So nobody got it. We didn't, and it wasn't necessary. We were just there. We were in the 60s and we were living the absolute dream. Ronnie Scott opened his club in 65. I was just sitting there till 2 o'clock in the morning watching Nina Simone and the Modern Jazz Quartet, Miles Davis. Everybody played at Ronnie. So my life in that period, 62, 65, 64, 65, was just an extraordinary time where your clothes, clubs you went to, people you knew, all came from music. It was all about music. There was a wheel that would be right in the middle. 65, the Marquee Club ran its first festival in Richmond, which eventually, years later, became Reading Festival. And we stood on the stage on a Sunday afternoon, me, Keith Moon, and Roger Daltrey, and we were standing there. I was carrying their gear and humping around. And 4 minis pulled into the backstage area, and Paul, John, Ringo, and George got out of each one of them and came backstage and hung out. And I was looking at it thinking, I've got to get in this business. I've got to be in this music business. But I kind of didn't really understand what it was. I had no idea what the music business was. I had no idea what anybody did. I didn't know what an agent or a manager was. All I knew was, anyway. I decided by 1966, going on through that, I was 20 odd years old. My father had moved from Soho down to Chelsea. Now, I don't know whether you know, but in that time, Carnaby Street was dying, and the Kings Road Chelsea became the place. Everybody was going to San Francisco with flowers in their hair. Everybody was driving Mini Mokes and wearing shirts and white jeans, and we were all looking very loving, and it was all sensational. But it wasn't making me any money, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And my trip to become an entrepreneur or a legend had come to a bit of a halt, really. So I met a guy in the pub who was an actor, a very famous old black and white actor named Howard Marion Crawford, and he's in Reach for the Sky. He's in all those old black and white films, always played the Winko. And he said, my father said you want to... Anyway, he got me an equity ticket, which is a union card, to become an actor. And he introduced me to his agent, and I went to see this guy in Poland Street. And I said, Boney Crawford said, oh yes, he said, I know. He said, I've got to be honest with you. And I said, well, he said, I think Carl Pope is probably one of the most boring names I've ever heard. And I can't get you any work. But if you were called Nick Flash or John Wayne or something like that, I'm your man. So I went away and thought about Nick Flash overnight, came back and said, I'm really sorry, I can't be Nick Flash. He said, I've just read your equity ticket and your middle name's Leighton. And I said, yeah. He said, well, that's easy. Leighton-Pope, Carl Leighton-Pope. And on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, I need you to go to Pinewood Studios. I've got you 5 weeks' work on a Michael Caine movie called $1 Billion Brain. You'll be in the crowd, you'll love it, it's all fantastic, you're an actor. Oh, God bless you, I said. Signed a thing, and off I went to be an actor. Why wouldn't I? White jeans, fella's shirt, Mini Moke, Pinewood Studios. That's the very place for me. Music business, I don't care. This is my path, this is where I'm going. I did the film. 3 months later, I got a week on a TV commercial. 6 weeks after that, I got a day on a fashion shoot. 2 weeks after, there was no money, there was no work. The whole acting thing was just like falling apart right in front of my eyes. And I thought, I'm 20 years old, 21, Jesus, and I haven't done anything, I haven't been anywhere. And I keep thinking that the next move I make will be the one, but there's no move. And I was really beginning to get quite down on myself. And I was drinking in a pub in Holland Park, 2 other guys. And we were all drinking gin and tonic. We started talking to each other. So I said, what do you guys do? They said, They said, well, actually, we're about to start a minicab company. We bought this phone number, Park 1234. But we need another partner. I'm the very man for you, said I, on my trip to being an entrepreneur. I was ready. I'm the guy. We'll print 10,000 cards, and the cards will say, doesn't matter how drunk you get, you'll never forget Park 1234, 24-hour car hire service. Now, one of the guys who was getting 100 quid a week from his family in South Africa to stay away was a bit of a drunk. So he handled the phones. Me and the other guy drove the cars, and we started a 24-hour car hire business in Holland Park. Unbelievable place in London, West London, and just absolutely fantastic. Loads of faces. So we worked out that if really good people, interesting people called up, I should go and pick them up because I could chat to them and we could get their business. The first one, Lady Elizabeth Anson, was the first cousin to the Queen, and her close friend was Margaret, and her brother was Patrick Litchfield, who was a fashion photographer. I got her and I got Patrick. Patrick's best friend was Spike Milligan and all those. I got all of those. He introduced me to David Bailey. I got David Bailey and Barry Lattick. And suddenly this whole car hire company was going nuts. We had 25 cars. It was going crazy. I was that guy. I met David Frost at a sort of a drinks thing, excuse me, and he introduced me to Elizabeth Rees-Williams, who was married to Richard Harris, who was as mad as a box of frogs. But he was making a film called Cromwell, and they put 6 cars on that movie. Her brother Morgan was a co-producer of a film called Anne of 1,000 Days with the Burtons. They put 6 cars on that movie. And then she left him and went to live with Rex Harrison, so I got him as well. So you imagine what my world was, how, I mean, you know, when you think about a trajectory, you guys are all in business, you know how it works. You're going like that. Oh, the ride, I'm on the ride. All fantastic. By now we had over 50 cars. We'd started a removal company, and it was just, oh, and I'd met my wife who was sitting over there. We didn't marry then, we got engaged. 32 years. Anyway, that's nothing to do with this speech. Sorry, Don. So the whole thing was going phenomenally well. And in January 1972, the phone rang. Pivotal moment. Pamela was working for me then. She said, there's a guy on the phone you went to school with. His name's Peter Jacobs, and he wants to talk to you. So I picked up the phone, and I said, yes, Peter. He said, I've built a recording studio in Cardiff, and we haven't got any money. I want to put some equipment in it, and somebody told me you'd made a load of money. I got in my car so fast, it would make your fucking... I drove 100 miles an hour. The music business was calling. I was going across the bridge, land of song. Let's go. Got there, it was a shop, converted shop. So, but it looked like a recording studio on account of the fact that I'd never seen one before, but it was... had a window that you looked through and stuff like that. Anyway, and it had an office at the back, and I said, so record this, a recording studio. And they all nodded and went, yes, it is. Sold my shares in the car hire business, threw all my money into this recording studio. By the way, just in case there's a bit of confusion here, where it says Wales, land of song, if you look at the very small print underneath, it says they haven't got any money. So you should sort of read that, because the studio started filling up with everybody who was singing and having a really good time, but they couldn't pay their bills. But I didn't really care. I was in the music business. Can you imagine, from standing on that stage in 1965, and here I was, a professional music business person. So the engineer in the studio, Daisho, was 18 years old, and he was a guitarist. He was in a band called Sassafras. And he came and said, we would like you to be our manager. Now, what he actually wanted was a long wheelbase transit van. Which turns out to be an anagram of I'm looking for a manager. What a load of nonsense that was. So I bought the van. Why wouldn't you? Don't be silly. Get in it, drive. Nottingham Boat Club, Quaint Ways, Chester. 76 Club Burton-on-Trent. I'm the very man. What does a manager do? I have not got a clue, but I am he. So it turns out the manager gets the money at the end of the gig. I was managing them. Here I am. Here's the money. So it looked very exciting. We had the recording studio. They were writing songs. The whole thing was going particularly well. And we got an agent in London who was very excited about the band, sent us to Holland, sent us to a few other places, and it was all looking particularly good. And then I got a call from Chrysalis Records, and I don't know whether any of you know anything about Chrysalis Records, but Chrysalis Records had started their company with 10 Years After and Jethro Tull, and they had signed Procol Harum, and then they had bought a company that George Martin owned, who had produced all the Beatle records. So we were playing the Greyhound and the Speakeasy in London, so I went to Chrysalis's offices. I sat in the office, being the very manager, looking like this and some of that, and they said, here's a contract, we want to sign your band. And I went, oh. And then George Martin walked in the room. And I just looked at him, thought, sorry, ladies, fuck me, it's George Martin. I mean, I'm just like, and he said, we're terribly excited about your band, Sassafras. We'd really like to have them on the label, and we think they've got some potential. We're sure that they will make great records, and we want to sign them as soon as possible. Got the contract, sat with the band around a table, the five of them and me, and I used all the legal skills. Actually, no, I didn't have any of those. Anyway, I decided instead of legal skills, I would just mention George Martin's name. So I said, George Martin said this, and then George Martin handed me that, and then George said, and then George Martin said this, and by the time I got to the 8th or 9th George Martin, they all picked up a pen and signed it. Oh, for sure, thank you for that advice. We'll sign the contract, no problem at all. George Martin, I took it back to Chrysalis, and George said, he said, a bit of an oversight. He said, I forgot to talk to you about the publishing. I thought, publishing? Publishing. These guys are too stupid to write a book. What do I care about the publishing for? Bring me your standard contract. I'm the very man. Boys, yes. George Martin, and George. George Martin, they all signed that, like that. But we made an album, we released it on Chrysalis Records, and it wasn't a bad record, it wasn't a hit record, but we were still going round and round and round in the back of the van, on and on and on. We made a second record, which wasn't quite as good as the first record, but Chrysalis quite liked it, we released it, and they sent us to America. Went to America in August, unbelievable, 1975. Went on tour with 10 Years After. We were out with Fleetwood Mac, with the new lineup, which was amazing. Rhiannon was a big hit for them, and it was extraordinary being on the road with a band like that. And Peter Frampton was recording Frampton Comes Alive. We were on those dates. America, 10,000 people a night. I'm the manager, come and talk to me. Still not really understanding what I should be doing. When we made the first album, which was worse than the second album, which was a bit worse than the first album, I realized that the manager couldn't just own the van, that the manager couldn't just be the guy who drove it, the manager just couldn't be that guy. What the manager should be doing is realizing, which I learned quite quickly, was that the music business and my speech and everything else that goes with it is actually only 3 minutes long. And if you don't have that 3 minutes, then you haven't got a career in the music business. And in 1975, we were on the road with Jethro Tull. We were on the road with Thin Lizzy, is a perfect example. We were on the road with Thin Lizzy, and they were playing the same gigs that we were playing. They were doing exactly the same thing we were doing. And Phil Lynott wrote The Boys Are Back in Town. See ya. 3 minutes, that's all. And so I started to realize that if Sassafras didn't have 3 minutes, Sassafras didn't have a career. And I was beating my brains out there going broke. So that year was a terrible year for me, 1976. The official receiver turned up, put a padlock on my studio. I had obviously made a very, very shrewd business move and forgotten to make it a limited company. So I went bankrupt straight away. They came to the house for the furniture. They came and took the car, which actually didn't work anyway, but it was just a disaster. But actually it wasn't. It felt like a disaster, but the official receiver who put me through said, last or first? Last day of your life, first day of your life. He said, you've got no debt, you've got no business, you've got nothing. You can't have a bank account, can't have any credit, can't. But he said, you're free. Go and make a life for yourself. I had a wife, Pamela, 4 children, live in a council house, and we were on our arses. If I had another 20 minutes, which I don't have for this speech, you would be amazed how bad it was. I mean, like, just very quickly, we would stand in the supermarket at 5 o'clock on a Saturday night waiting for them to reduce the chicken to less than £1 so we could afford to buy it. I mean, we were on our asses. And 4 children. So Sassafras split up in 1977, so there was no more income, there was no more money. But I owed the agency in London £200. And I can't owe money, I just can't live on myself. Owing money, it's just, I can't do it. So I took the £200 to London, and excuse me, hay fever's just killing me. And I sat down with the agent, and I gave him the 200 quid. And John Cherry said, he's dead now. John Cherry said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get a load of jobs. I'm going to get anything that can feed my family and pay my bills. What do you think I'm going to do, John? I tried to be an actor, I tried to be in the music business, tried to be a manager, tried to be all of these things, and I failed everything that I have tried. Everything. He said, you could be an agent. I went, John. He said, no, you could. He said, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll give you the 200 quid back, and I'll employ you for 5 weeks at £40 a week. And if it works, I'll give you some more money, and if it doesn't work, doesn't matter. I got on the train and went back to Cardiff, and it's a true story, hand on my heart. I sat in the living room with Pamela. I said, I've got some great news, and I've got some other news. She said, give me the great news first. So I put the 200 quid on the table. She went, oh my God, 200 quid, oh Jesus. I would, John shit. I said, yeah, give it back to me. So she went, oh, what's the other news? I said, give me a job. She went, that's amazing. I said, it's in London. We're living in Cardiff, in a council house, 150 miles away, 40 quid a week. She went, all right. So we were very broke, and we didn't have a phone. So we walked down to the local phone box. Pamela got in the phone box and phoned her mum up, who lived in Holland Park, had a 1-bedroom flat. She said, Carl's got a job in London. Can he sleep on your sofa for a while? Actually, it was a year, but she did say a while. She gets confused with that timing thing. Sorry. So Monday morning, I get on a train, I go to London, and I get a desk, phone right there, NUS book, student's book, lovely, pad, fill in, and there were 10 other agents sitting in a circle. All of them were on the phone. Talking to this guy, I put the phone down. And I was sitting there thinking, what do they do? What do I do? I'm sitting here, being an agent. Is this all you have to do? Sit here and be an agent? I thought there's got to be a bit more to it than this. So, sorry. I went into John Cherry's office on the second day, and I went, John, he went, I'm so sorry, he said, I've been really, really busy. But I've got a band coming in this afternoon who are looking for an agent, and you'll be the very person for them. So I went, great. So I come back in, there's a guy standing there in a suit who looked like me when I started managing Sassafras. He didn't have a clue what he was doing, but he was managing Woody Woodmansey's U-Boat. Now, I don't know anybody in here who's a fan of David Bowie. There's a few nodding heads out there. But this is Spiders of Mars, right? The David Bowie's band, Woody Woodmansey's U-Boat. John Cherry said, this is Carl Leighton-Pope, one of our top agents. He's going to be... So I sort of went like that, but then I realised he was talking about me. So I said, oh, absolutely, no problem with me. You leave it with me. This is going to be great. So I went in the office, I put the album on. It was a piece of shit. What a terrible, terrible record. It was just fucking awful. So I phoned my mate, Jack Barry, who ran the Marquee Club, and I said, Jack, I've become an agent. He said, yeah, I know, somebody told me that. He said, what do you want? I said, I want Woody Woodman's His U-Boat. He said, I'll give you a Monday. No one comes on a Monday. I said, great. So took the Monday and I said, Jack, this is my first band. Jack went, yeah. And I'd been there. Sassafras had played there many times and we'd always done good business. And Jack was a mate, you know. And he said, yeah. He booked Reading Festival. I said, Jack, Woody Woodman's His U-Boat on the poster, Reading Festival. He said, are you fucking deluded? What is the matter with you? I said, Jack, come on. My first act, Jack. You've got to help me out here. He said, actually, he said, you're very lucky. I said, why? He said, I've had a cancellation. Oh, I said, when? He said, 11 o'clock, Sunday morning. Now, I don't know whether any of you have ever been to Reading Festival, but it rains every year at Reading Festival. So by the time 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning comes, the mud is so thick, right? There'll be like 3 guys and a dog on a rope. You know, I mean, it's just like Woody at the end of his show always jumped over his drum kit. And when he jumped over at Reading Festival, that was the last I saw of him. It was jumped straight up, gone like that, right? So I know. So I sat back at the office. I thought, well, you know, it's all, but this is obviously, you know, I just started. I've been in the agency 3 weeks. I'd booked all these dates. It was all great. And my phone rang, and it was a guy named Richard Ogden, and he said, can you come to Notting Hill? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I said, now. So I went to Notting Hill, banged on this door, house door, a door opened, Richard Branson extended his hand. He said, you probably don't know who I am, but I'm Richard Branson. I said, oh, I know you are, Virgin Records. He said, we've got a band that we think is going to have a big hit record. Richard Ogden tells me you're one of the best agents in London. Where are these people getting this shit from? I mean... So I said, well, yes. And he said, they're terrible live, terrible. And Richard Ogden told me that when you were managing Sassafras, you played every toilet, every club, sorry, not toilet, every club in the UK. I want this band to play 30 shows back to back in the UK so we can at least get them presentable because they've got to go to America. This band, they were called the Motors, right? And they were about to have a very big hit with a song called Airport. And they were really nice guys, 4 of them. They were great. Andy Garvey, guy, really smashing guys. I booked 30 clubs for them around the country. And halfway through booking them all, my phone rang and it was a lawyer. And he said, I run Virgin Records in America and we've got a girl in America that we want to bring to Europe and everybody wants to sign her. The agents are going crazy for her, but I've already told her that you're the best agent. I thought that was a mistake putting it on my business card, right? He said, told him you're, and she wants to come, definitely, but she wants to headline Reading Festival, and she's going to be enormous. And the problem is you've got to go to New York if you want to sign her. This girl was Patti Smith, right? And she was about to have a hit called Because the Night, which Bruce Springsteen had written. Wow. So I went into John Cherry's office and I said, I could get Patti Smith. He went, Patti Smith, are you kidding me? He said, 2 of the boys in here. I said, no, I can get it. I'm one of the best agents in London. Fucking wake up. So I flew to New York on a Monday morning. I made the deal in the afternoon, got the red eye back. I was back on my desk Tuesday morning with Patti Smith. There were a couple of caveats in the meeting, which I really wasn't prepared for. Where's Vienna? And Amsterdam? And they'd given me these list of 6 cities that Patti wanted to go to on her first European tour. So I raced back to the office, went to W.H. Smith, bought a big fuck off map like that, opened it up and went, oh my God, look how far it is from Vienna to Amsterdam. What's in between? It was brilliant. I took the book home with me every night. I studied it from cover to cover. I knew every city. I knew every mileage. I knew every freeway. I knew exactly where it all was. And I booked this sensational tour for Patti Smith. Wow. When you're booking a tour like that with an act that's prestigious, people get to know about it, right? They do. So when I was on tour in America in 1975 with Sassafras, I'd made quite a few friends. And a guy called me up and he said, I'm not working at Chrysalis anymore. I'm managing a band in Chicago. And somebody told me that you were the best agent and I'd like you to tour them. So they're called Styx, STYX. And I've told A&M Records that you're the agent. get round there. This is when we want to come. Great. Put the phone down. I've got Patti Smith. I'm booking that tour. The motors are working. I'm fantastic. There's a John Sherry. John Sherry gave me more money, and Pamela never told me. So I was getting the same pocket money after 3 months that I was getting after 1 week. Do you understand what that means? It's hardship. Anyway, a week later, the phone rings, and the guy's on the phone. He said, "Carl." I said, "Yeah." He said, "My name's Herbie Herbert. I'm calling from San Francisco. Derek Sutton said you're the best agent in Europe. I want you to tour my band Journey. They want to come to Europe." I went, "Yeah, all right." Journey. Got a call from LA, REO Speedwagon. Got another call from San Francisco, Huey Lewis and the News. I found Al Stewart's manager called me, said, "I hear great things about you. Year of the Cat was going to be a big album." Al Stewart, there was a band called Camel that I signed. I signed a band called UFO. I signed Climax Blues Band. It's just all going completely mad. And they moved me to this office out of the 10-man pit into my own office. Well, actually, I was sharing it with 2 other guys. One guy was booking Talking Heads tour, and the other guy was booking the Jerry Rafferty Baker Street tour. I was booking 12 tours. These 2 guys were booking 1 each. And I had one of those phones, because in those days we had no phone. Talking to everybody all day long. I knew all the European promoters were. I was making deals, got myself nuts. And right in the middle of it, a guy came in and said, "I work at Phonogram Records, and I've got a band that we don't know what to do with. It's the wrong timing, but we sort of like them, and we'd like you to listen to it." And I went, "You're fucking kidding me, pal. Look at this." He went, No, we think you'll like them, and we're looking for a manager and an agent." So I said, "Well, play us some songs." So play me Lions, Waterside, and play me Sultans of Swing. And he said, "Dire Straits are going to be a big act. You should be the agent." I went, "Well, I've got 12. Can't imagine 13's too many. No problem for me." Ed Bicknell, who was booking the Jerry Rafferty tour, said, "I fucking hate Jerry Rafferty. He's driving me nuts. He hasn't got a manager. Every time I phone up, his wife says, 'Jerry's not coming. I'm resigning, and I'm going to manage Dire Straits.'" Off he went. I became the agent. 4 days later, I signed Simple Minds. I was the hottest agent in London by a country mile. It was just the most extraordinary thing. I've already told you that being the best agent in London doesn't necessarily mean you are. It just means people say you are, and people were saying it. But I was getting better at it. So John Sherry told me that he was folding the agency. He wanted to manage Wishbone Ash, who I was already booking. And he said I should start my own company, and I did. I took all my acts with a couple of other guys, and we started a company called Performing Artists Network, 1979, which exploded. I mean, it was just really, really successful. We were making shed loads of money. I'd moved my family up to London. The whole thing was going ridiculously well. By the time we got to 1981, the realization of the world that I was in was that they were moving sands. Journey only came once, they hated Europe. Patti only came once, REO Speedwagon only came once, Huey Lewis came a couple of times, Styx came a couple of times, and I thought, my world is going to be made up of me just out every day hunting and fishing for another act, for another act, for another act. And I just thought, there's no real security in this for me. How does it work? How am I supposed to plan? And we were making good money, but for how long, I didn't know. UFO fired their manager. Actually, he sold everything they had. He bought a big bag of Coke and fell in the swimming pool. Now, I don't know how many of you, that doesn't matter. Anyway, they don't fall in the swimming pool. But anyway, they phoned me up and said, "We don't know anybody else. We love you. Will you be our manager?" I said, "Yeah." So had a look at what they were planning on doing. I met with Sharon Osbourne, and Sharon said, "Ozzy's going to tour America for 5 months next year, and we want to do a 2-band package with UFO. It's going to be amazing." Now, UFO were consuming a large amount of drugs, as was Ozzy during that time. But me and Sharon weren't, and we were able to make the deal, and we were able to book a tour, which started in the Reunion Arena in Dallas, Fort Worth. My deal was 90% bonus. My deal was a bonus over 90% business done. And I was really in good shape. But we only did 80% business in Dallas, and I went to Sharon and said, "Can we make it better? She said, Ozzy's got a marketing plan. Yeah, exactly. That was sort of my reaction. I said, really? Oh, yeah, she said, when we get to San Antonio, which we were going to drive overnight to San Antonio, Ozzy's got a plan. All the dates will sell out. We were doing 7 shows in Texas. Great. So we got to San Antonio overnight. I got a call at midday following morning from Sharon, said, everybody's in jail. Ozzy went to the Alamo, which is like the cenotaph in London, and took a film crew and peed all over the front door. So they locked us all up, and the Texans hated us, but we sold out everywhere. You couldn't buy a ticket. It was an amazing tour. The band said they were spending about $10,000 a week on drugs at that point. The band said, we don't really want you on the road because you don't take any drugs and you're kind of interfering with our social agenda. We want you, we want you to go home. I said, I will. So in 5 months, I made 11 trips to America, 8 of them to get them out of jail, 2 of them to pay a rather large bill in a hotel that seemed to have some substantial difficulties finding anything in any of the rooms, and 1 trip to get an 18-year-old journalist who they didn't like in Toulouse, where was it? I can't remember, anyway, North Dakota somewhere, where they'd started a fight in a bar with the kid, and then they'd run off and left him. He got arrested and put in jail and didn't know what to do. It took us 3 days to find him. I had to go out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I loved it. It was brilliant. This was fucking sex and drugs and rock and roll. This is why God put me on this earth. Let's go. It was great. In the January of '82, I got a call from Warner Brothers who said they had a band called Matt Bianco who were going to have a big hit with a song called Get Out Your Lazy Bed, and they needed a manager. And this is one of the great new romantic bands of the 80s. Sade, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Spandau, Duran's, Matt Bianco. They're right in the middle of this fabulous, fabulous dress fashion world. The album was sensational. Boom. Sold 2 million copies. I was that very person. It was amazing. And guess what? I'd actually, not only was I still one of the best agents in London, but I was slowly becoming one of the best managers in London. Imagine, 2 titles. Oh, the weight of it all, I can't tell you. Anyway, it all got better, except the agency business started to dwindle. And it dwindled, A, because I wasn't putting a lot of time into finding new business, and B, because I kind of just wasn't sure about how it worked. And the kind of money that I was making as a manager obviously was huge compared with what we were doing. I found a band in Toronto, which probably nobody in this room has ever heard of, called Saga. And they were very much like Queen. And I booked a European tour for them, and it sold out. Huge business. I brought them into London to play Hammersmith Odeon, and it died. But we knew that we had Europe. And the guy who managed them said to me, this is great. You and I should be partners. And I said, well, partners in what? He said, well, I own this band. I own the publishing, I own the recording. They're all on a salary. They're mine. I own them. You and I together should become a record label and a publishing company. You know how it all works. You're a really good guy. I'm a bit of an academic. Between the 2 of us, oyster. We have got it all going on. So I did. I closed the agency in 1982, threw my lot in with Clive, and we started a business called Bonaire. And in those days, just so you know, in this room, because it's quite interesting, the music industry during that time, and most of you will know this, had moved from vinyl into cassette at the end of the 70s. First, mobile music. So people, their whole vinyl collection now was a cassette player, was a cassette in the car, was a mobile cassette. Everybody had bought their record collection twice. Then CD came along, which you couldn't record on. So now suddenly, everybody bought their, CD player, CD Walkman, CD in the car. Are you kidding me? This is all fantastic. So record companies, by the time we got to the early 80s, were awash with money. They were making so much money just simply by you lot and me buying our record collection again and again. Another 8 copies of Abbey Road or whatever it was, Dark Side of the Moon. You've got to have 10 copies of that. So we all were actually funding this enormous balloon that was the record industry during that time. And we started a label. So we started a label, Saga, everybody liked it. We made massive deals in Europe. We had our own label. We had a label in Canada, whole thing in America. We took all these bands, we were signing them, we were recording them in studios. I had staff here, it was all going great. We were taking the Concorde on a Monday morning, flying to New York, having meetings, it was all great. LA, we signed 2 bands to Warner Brothers in Los Angeles. I bought a house in the Hollywood Hills, swimming pool, hot tub. This was all fantastic. I was that entrepreneur. Come on. It was all going swimmingly well. Came back to London and I bought 11 Harley Street for £500,000 and staffed it up. So, actually, I'm going to tell you just a little caveat for that. My father, the Welsh coal miner, never understood what I did. Never. And even when I was doing it full time, he used to ask me what I did during the day. He couldn't understand why I needed an office or people or anything at all. And so eventually I hope you don't mind me telling you a story, but I brought him to Harley Street for lunch. He came to the office and the girls all made a fuss. I took him out to a restaurant. We sat down and he looked at me and he said, 11 Harley Street. I said, yes, Dad. He said, do you own it? I said, yeah, we own it. Must be doing all right then. He said, they took me to buy 11 Harley Street before I realized that I was going to be successful in this business. But like everything else, you know, I decided once again that the security of my family and the security of my life, I needed to keep that agency thing alive because it was separate and it was mine. So in '83, I went to Vancouver because I liked an album that a guy in Canada had played me, and I made a deal to represent Bryan Adams, who I thought was a revelation. The songs were amazing. The Reckless album was fantastic, that fabulous duet with Tina. It was all going to be great. In '85, we released that album and we made the deal for him to tour with Tina and also sing the duet every night. Her first encore would be It's Only Love. And Tina was great. I mean, it was the Private Dancer record, which Mark Knopfler wrote that song. So the whole thing worked for me. It was almost like everything came together all at once. And it was going to be one of the biggest moves of my life to make that deal and to make it happen. It was really quite extraordinary. But she was unbelievable. I mean, God rest her soul. She was unbelievable. And she was great with Bryan. So every night at the end of her show, when she went on for the first encore, she would always start by saying, I got a boyfriend. And then Bryan would play those 2 chords, down, 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 down. And they would sing the song. It was just magical moment every single night. And coming out of that tour, Bryan never ever played a building less than an arena, never played clubs, never went back to nothing. It launched his career like you can't believe. I signed Bonnie Tyler that year, who had those big Gin Steinman songs, and that was a great signing for me. And then in 1988, I signed Van Morrison, and if we had about another hour, I'd be able to tell you that story. But I should have got a Duke of Edinburgh award for that. It was unbelievable. Van Morrison is unbelievably difficult, but the music is unbelievably great. So looking after Van was brilliant. The whole record thing and all of it didn't feel right to me. It wasn't who I was. It was video meetings and it was marketing and it was stuff, and I didn't feel it, you know when you don't feel it. I didn't feel it, but I had a really good business. I signed Joan Jett, I signed Jeff Healey, my agency business was going, I moved out, we sold Harley Street for 1.4 million, made £900,000, and I owed the bank more than that. So that was the end of Bon Air Records, and we all shook hands and went our own way. As the millennium came and passed, there were 3 moves that I made. My apologies. As the 90s arrived, I had left Bon Air and I'd gone back to being a full-time agent. And a lot of you will know this story because it's been a lot of television lately. I got pursued by an Indian guy who lived in Los Angeles, Steve Banerjee. And he had a club and he had invented the Chippendales. And they chased me around like you can't believe. I mean, they had lawyers chasing me, all kinds of people, you good. And I used to play squash every morning with a guy named Anthony Van Last, who was a choreographer. And Anthony said, you know something, this could be the first ever theatre show specifically for women. You should do it. We'll have a laugh with it. We'll put it in the West End. We'll build it. It'll be amazing. We can do this. This will be fantastic. So I made the deal with Steve Banerjee. Sadly, he had just hired a guy from the mafia to shoot his partner, but that's a different story. I think he could see that I was going to be a cash cow, so he at least I had a couple of weeks, I'd be all right. So we did it. I brought him to England to do a TV thing. And Terry Wogan used to have a show at 6:45 every night on TV, Monday to Friday. And I got him on that show on the understanding that they were an American dance troupe and that me and Anthony Van Last were going to produce. Anyway, Wogan put it on. So they dressed as American chauffeurs. And of course, at the end of the song, took the fucking clothes off. Terry Wogan went nuts. Oh, you have no idea. And he, he went crazy. But it worked. The following day, we did Pebble Mill at 1. Do you remember Pebble Mill at 1 from Birmingham? So we get up there. I've got 6 of the guys, collars and cuffs. They're all ready to come out, looking stunning. I think I'll go and have a look at the audience. So I went out. The audience was all women, plus. Minus was there wasn't one of them out there that was under 70 years old, right? They were all sitting in like this, looking. So I said to this woman, I said, you like the Chippendales then? She said, oh, we love a circus. I thought, oh, fuck it. And so we so we put them on, and they went nuts. If we'd have had more time and given them a lot more time to get their knickers off, they'd have thrown them on the stage. But obviously, we didn't have enough time for that. But it was hysterical. And the phones rang. You would not believe the phones went nuts. So we put them in a Strand Theatre for a year in the West End. And then I put a troupe on tour. And then I put 2 troupes on tour in Europe. So by the 95, 96, the whole Chippendale thing was a monster. Bryan Adams in 92 had written Everything I Do. So we were in the stadium business with Bryan and we were making a ton of money. And Pamela and I sat down and we were talking about how frustrated, no, not frustrated, how one of those moments where you're looking back, which, is always the best time to look back, is that I had sold Harley Street and I wish I'd kept it. I could, if I'd borrowed more money, I should have kept it. It was like, and Pamela said, well, we should get in the property business. If you feel like that about property, why don't we secure ourselves by buying a lot of property in London, and that would be our security going forward with our family and our kids. Don't need you don't have to get you'll be fine. Pension, fuck that. So we did. So we bought a load of property in the 90s, and my daughter runs that business for us, and it's kind of secured me for life, which meant that I could start firing people that I didn't particularly get on with. I think Van Morrison was one of the first that went. Anyway, I had gone into the millennium. The Chippendales had finished at the end of the 90s, and I had decided that agency would be the way forward, at least temporarily. The guy who manages Bryan Adams in Vancouver called me up and said, I'm going to sign a guy who's on Warner Brothers Records called Michael Bublé. I said, all right. He said, well, you'll be doing it. I went, all right. So I said, well, what is it? So he sent me the first Michael Bublé album, which had a Bee Gees song on it, had a George Michael song. It was like a load of covers. So I phoned him up and said, any pub anywhere, you can hear somebody singing these songs. I said, kid's got a nice voice, but So they sent him to Paris to do a little showcase for Warner Brothers in France. And we went, me and Pamela went. So I'm talking to the guys at the record company and shaking hands. I don't know Michael Bublé is at all, just saying hello. Pamela's sitting at the bar on her own. A guy came over and said, are you all right? Would you like a drink? And she said, no, I'm with my husband. He's talking to the record company. I was sitting. So the guy went, all right, well, as long as you're okay, are you sure you're okay? And Pamela went, yeah, thanks very much. Anyway, excuse me. It was Michael, went up and sang 3 songs. And Pamela went, oh, Michael Bublé. And he was lovely. He was absolutely lovely. So what do? All my career, my 3-minute story to you, and my entire career was made up on, you get a song, Summer of '69, Heaven, and Bryan Adams becomes a smash. Boys Are Back in Town. Michael Bublé didn't have a song. He had an album with a load of songs on it that I was singing. So how does that work? How do you do that? What is it? Now, I'm friends with Michael Parkinson. And so we called Mike Parky. And Parky's a big jazzer. He loves jazz. Always did. Always did. And so I thought, Michael doesn't have an act that he can really kind of go, this is it. He really didn't. So I sold him Michael Bublé. put it on the show and freaked him out completely. And Parky went nuts, loved him on the sofa, loved him singing. The whole thing was great. We did massive showcases everywhere, and we went after it. And then the record company said, we should bring him to London and put him in a really, really lovely upmarket theatre where people can come and sit down and love Michael Bublé. And I said, no, we won't. So I'm going to put him in Ronnie Scott's for a week. 2 shows a night, 6 nights, and we are going to sell this out around the block. People are going to go crazy for Michael Bublé. And we did, and they did. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. John Reid, who managed Elton John, he was Elton John's manager for years, lovely guy. I saw him there a couple of times, and then he phoned me up on Friday. He said, this is typical of the music business. He said, Carl. I said, oh, how are you, John? How long have we been friends? I said, oh, since the war. Lovely. Before I was a famous agent, we were friends then. I was hoping to get a table for 12 for Saturday, and I thought, as we were friends, you and I, the fucking place was like heaving. It was just amazing. Album went gold. In England, the album went platinum. Took him to France, took a couple of assaults of Europe. And 11 months later, we sold out 2 nights at the Albert Hall. It was the most incredible thing to sell tickets that fast off an album that was just a lot of cover songs that anybody in this room, well, maybe not all of you, but some of you could probably sing. Actually, it was quite funny because when I have a box of the Albert Hall, so when you go to the Albert Hall, I do shows there, I always get the same box. And I went in and I just wanted to check the catering because I had guests. And I was looking around and there was some sandwiches, and I looked at the sandwich, and one sandwich had a big bite out the middle of it. And I went, oh my God, what is that? And he said, Michael Bublé was here. Eating a bite out of my sandwich. And anyway, Michael just exploded in our faces. Brian was exploding. That year, that 91, I signed Keith Urban and I signed Billy Ocean. And I love my wife very much. We've been together 54 years. But if anything went wrong with our marriage, I'll go and live with Billy in a heartbeat. He is, can I have a drink? He is, I've got to tell you, this is absolutely true. He is one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet, ever. And thanks very much, David. It's my agent. See what that is? It's 10%. Right there, look. See that? Have a look at that, because that's real, okay? So Billy came to me and he said that he had obviously, a number of hit songs which he had written. He's a wealthy boy during the 80s, and Going Gets Tough, you all know those songs. And he said, I want to get a live career, Carl. And I said, okay, but you won't sell any tickets. People know the songs, they don't know who you are. I said, we should play 300, 400 seat rooms, sell them out, and then we'll go crazy. Now, we've got him we sold the Palladium out a couple of weeks ago. This guy is like a monster. And he's really funny, Billy, and you love representing him. He always says things like, I've got the plan. I said, well, Billy, what's the plan? We'll start the show with 2 toilet songs. I said, how's that work? He said, well, I'll sing a couple of songs off the new album, which nobody really wants to listen to. Nobody cares about them. And he said, and then they'll all go to the toilet, and they'll all get a drink, and they'll put their handbags under the seats. And then I'll do a 20-minute version of Red Light and fucking kill them. And he does. Every single night, people are on the red light, spells danger. Everybody's singing. It's just the hits are Get Out of Your Car, Caribbean Queen. I mean, it's just, the hits are just 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Exactly what I was talking to you about. 3 minutes. And he's got 8 of them. And they're just absolutely fantastic. I had decided that there was an opportunity for me. We made some money, that we could go into theatre. We wrote and produced a musical called Carnaby Street, which we toured and which did okay. We're in the process of producing another play, which Lindsay Posner is going to direct for me, and that will go into the West End at the end of this year, beginning of next. We have a lot of stuff that we do all the time. There's 2 shows coming into the West End, Patriots and Crazy for You, which Pamela and I fund. It's a world that I absolutely adore, and it's something that I want to do. So if you just kind of think for a minute, and I've kind of told you roughly what it is, okay? So if you go back to the whole entrepreneur thing, did I work hard? Yes, I did. Did I have a vision for my acts? Yes, I did. Do I have a passion for what I do? Yes, I do. Am I motivated? Yes, I am. Did I take a risk with the studio and with everything else and my family? Yes, I did. Am I curious? I've always been a bit curious. I'm not as curious anymore because I don't have to be. Am I creative? I was always creative, and I always had a lot of confidence. I was always going to win. There was never any question. When I was an actor, I was going to be the best actor. I was always going to be that guy. I always did that. I was never afraid of it. And that, I think, is, I always thought to myself, right, and I'll finish with this. I always thought to myself that, and I'm a huge football fan, and I always thought, if you thought about, I've thought my life about being a football player and getting on the field. That's all you had to do was get on the field. You had to train, put a pair of boots on and get on the field. And you kept running around until somebody passed you the ball. And if you didn't kick it out the ground or kick it back to the guy who passed it to you, you had a chance of kicking it in the goal. I've kicked it in the goal many, many times. And that's what's made me what I am today. And I think that, for me, is really, really how my life has taken the course it did. I'm 77 years old. I continue to work. And I'm always looking for something. There's always another bridge. I'm a Capricorn, so there's always another mountain to climb, and I don't care about that either. Am I going to retire? No. Am I an entrepreneur? Probably. But I like legend better, to be honest with you. Can I just thank you for listening? I really can. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I promise you there'll be time for some questions. We've certainly got a few minutes. So who has the first question for Carl? Who would like to ask the first question? Here we are, gentlemen.
What happened to the table at Ronnie Scott's with Elton John?
He couldn't get it. There was no table. I mean, we were absolutely sold out, and he didn't speak to me for months after. Prick. Oh, sorry. But that was, it was him. You know. But what it did was, it actually told me what we had, and that's what when we didn't know what we had with Michael. We just had a good-looking kid who could sing, who people really, really liked. And I'll tell you something right now, for all of you in this room, so there's no misunderstanding. On the second album, when Michael wrote Home, we got out of jail because we didn't know whether or not. Now, obviously, in sheer live career-wise, he'd gone from Ronnie Scott's to the Albert Hall in 11 months. God bless. But how was I going to get him into the U2? How was I going to the O2? How was I going to sell 16,000 tickets? I needed. What did I need, everybody? 3 fucking minutes. I needed 3 minutes. And where was that 3 minutes going to come from? And it came from Home. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's exactly what he was saying. I want to go home. I'll tell you how bad, actually no, I'll tell you how good that single was. We had 3 singles off that second album, and we couldn't move to a second single or a third single because radio wouldn't get off Home. They just played it and played it and played it. It was like Everything I Do. Do you want to hear a great Everything I Do story? Do you? If you do, I'll tell it to you. If you don't, I'll go home. Doesn't matter. We were in the studio playing pool, me and Adams and a few other musicians. And a guy named Michael Kamen came in. I'd known Michael Kamen. And all Michael Kamen did was he wrote music for film. And we'd done some stuff with him. Adams had done the Three Musketeers, a couple of other things with him. So we all knew Michael. And I said, hey, Michael, how are you? Oh, he said, I'm up to my... I said, what's the matter? He said, well, I need to talk to Adams. I said, why? He said, well, I've got a film. And he said, I've got no music. And it's getting late. And they're all giving me a hard time. And I can't come up with... I need a song. I don't know what I'm doing here. So anyway, so him and Adams got together. And we put this film on, went in the room, and we watched the Robin Hood movie with Kevin Costner with no music. Right? And Brian had a piece of paper and a pen. I'll die for you, I'll lie for you. He's writing down stuff off the film. He went in the studio straight away with Mutt Langer, who was producing that song, who had written many, many, many hits in his life. And they went in the studio with Mutt, and an hour, just over an hour, they wrote Everything I Do, right? And Michael came and went, fantastic, got it, this is the song, dee-dee-dee. So 2 weeks later, I get a call from Adams. What? Fuck, so what's the matter? They don't like it. I said, what do you mean don't like it? He said, the studio says it's a donkey, they don't like it. I went, oh, I thought it was a good song. He said, yeah, so did we, but he said, they're going, but anyway, it's too late, so they're going to use it, and they're going to use the music, so what the hell? He said, I can't do anything else. He said, and that's the end of that. So I spoke to Cayman. Cayman's really upset about it, but he said, it's a donkey, it's a donkey. I went, yeah, all right. So the fucking record comes out and goes, boom, goes straight to #1. So we get a donkey, right? We rented a donkey. And Michael Cayman lived in Notting Hill Gate. And we took the donkey round and we put a doll on it. It was dressed like a jockey. And it had a note on it that said, this donkey is a fucking racehorse. And we put it... And we tied it to his front door and rang the bell and ran away and took pictures of him. That's how it worked. God's true, hand on my heart.
I just wondered, what is your view of the music industry as it is today, as it's evolved from like the golden age of albums and forward and all the rest of it, and now with technology, etc. How do you view it now?
Well, I think what, there's no doubt in broad strokes that we've actually done a complete circle. When I was a kid, I didn't get to that, but in my early days, 13, 14, 15 years old, I would go to my record shop every Saturday morning and buy, my guy behind the counter would go, Carl, Runaway, Del Shannon, got to have that. Oh, you got to have this. I'd buy a single every Saturday, take it to a party. I never bought albums till the mid-'60s when I bought my first Beatle album. So we were buying singles and I think that when we got to the 90s, going into the millennium, I thought record companies really were taking the piss a bit. You would get an album with 12 tracks on it, 10 of them were shit, 2 of them were, one of them was okay, the other one was a hit, and they wanted 20 quid for it. And people went, and. The entire record industry, specifically EMI, the bigger companies, decided that the internet was a fad. It was going to be a fashion, it would come, and then it was going to go. They completely underestimated it, completely. And what they did was, because they underestimated it, they took music from the top of the list, which is where it was when I was growing up, and they moved it down the list. Suddenly it was games, it was all the things that kids wanted. And kids were really less interested in the music that consumed my life. And so we are back now where streaming is the world, and CDs aren't going to sell anymore. People haven't got CD players, they don't care. Your entire watch is going to be your life. You're going to be able to just basically, and you will buy or you will download you will buy subscriptions to Apple, you'll buy subscriptions to everybody else out there, and you'll get the music. Me and do you want to hear a really stupid story? I bought a Mercedes, a fully electric Mercedes. Are you kidding me? And I got in it and I drove out of the garage. You always think people are looking at you. They never are. Mercedes like that. And I said, Eliza, play the Beatles. And nothing happened. So, Eliza, play the Beatles. So I pulled over and I called Pamela. I said, this fucking car's useless. I'm going to take it back. She said, what? I said, Eliza won't play the Beatles. She said, you will if I call her Alexa, you dick. Yeah. There's no Eliza in my fully electric Mercedes. But the day of the CD's gone. The day of that music. I mean, people are still putting out records, waste of time. The new Rolling Stones record, nobody gives a shit. No one does, okay? What they want is the music that they want. And it's not even a question of nostalgia. It's a question of great music. Dark Side of the Moon, great music. All of that stuff is great. I went to Germany a few years ago to do the Wall show with Roger Waters, and they did it on the Berlin Wall, right? And I had Adams on that show and Van Morrison on that show, and I was looking after the Chieftain. So I had 3 acts on that show, and we were in Berlin, right on the Berlin Wall for 4 days filming this show. And Van Morrison sang Comfortably Numb. Now, a lot of you won't be Pink Floyd, but let me tell you, if you get a chance just to hear that, it's sensational. That's real music. That's really what it is. Most of the stuff now is very poppy. It's coming and going. My kids, Beyonce, my son's in the music. He's a concert promoter and he runs a ticket agency. So he's a big player in the business, Toby. So he went to see Elton John and he loved it. Thought it was just great. Elton's last ever Elton, it won't be the last ever. They spend too much money, him and David. He'll be back out in a couple of years' time. For the very last, it'll be the very, very last tour. There you go, very, very last. They spend money like water. But anyway, he went to see Beyonce. Okay, great. Do you know how many? Michael Bublé has 105 people on the road, right, with 25 artists. Beyonce has 510 people on the road and not making any money at all, playing all these stupid shows, but she's still selling. Like you, biggest download, everybody wants a Beyonce song right now. Ed Sheeran, not doing the business anymore, people are a little bit bored with it, but he's a great artist, he'll write great songs, all of that will go on. And there'll be some great people out there that will basically stay on the ride and they'll live the life and they'll get through all of this. But at the end of it, a lot of it will come and go. It will. A lot of it will just come, it'll have a beginning, a middle and an end, and that'll be the end. You know, and then our business will go on. Our business isn't going to go. And people say to me, oh yeah, well they can't sell records anymore, so I suppose they just go out and do shows. No, they fucking don't. You go out and do shows when you can sell records, when you can sell tickets. You can't just go out and play shows. You've got to be big enough, you've got to have enough 3 minutes to be able to get an audience to buy a ticket to see you, and that's not easy. And so, and also, all you people, all of you, however successful you are, I'm sure a lot of successful people in this room, that we are now making more choices about who we see than we've ever made in our lives, because the tickets are expensive, the whole thing has become ridiculously expensive, and normal people just simply can't afford to see 5, 6 shows a year, so they see 3. Which 3? Are you one of those 3? I just did a sold-out tour with Michael Bublé, and Michael won't come back now for at least 2 years, maybe even 3, because there's no point coming back, because everybody just saw him. Why would we? Brian Adams is going to come out. I'm just booking. I'm going to Vancouver tomorrow to sit down with Brian and go through all of this stuff for next year, and we'll come out and it'll be good fun and it'll be great. And he'll sell out. He'll do sell-out business because we've given it the gap. But that's because Brian's a wealthy boy, sold 100 million albums. He's not in a hurry. The people out there that are in a hurry are getting into all kinds of trouble. Business has changed, and you're right to see that. Absolutely, 100%. Sorry, Blair.
No, don't apologise.
Is it getting dark? Oh, sorry.
I don't want to worry, your train leaves in 10 minutes.
10 minutes,
It's been a thrill to have you here.
Oh,
the
thank you.
stories are just extraordinary. Would you please, again, ladies and gentlemen, thank Carl Leighton.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for taking care of me, I really appreciate it.